Zoning Commission to order. This is our January 9th, 2023 meeting. If we'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is Commission Member James Fitzsimmons. Next to Jim is Commission Member Jeff Cohan. And on the outside portion of on the right here is Jamie Hine, who's an alternate on the commission. To my immediate left is J.P. Benoit, who is the vice chairperson of the commission. Next to J.P. is Steve Allenson. And next to Steve is David Parent. At the lower table, we have Sharon Ann Tubby, who's our recording secretary. And next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, who is our town planner. And I'm Jim Seichter. I'm the chairperson of the commission. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of our December 12th, 2022 meeting. Any commission members with any comments, corrections, omissions, deletions, what have you on the minutes? If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes for Monday, December 12th, 2022.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Before I go to our first order of business, I'd like to just announce there's going to be the three public hearings that are entered on our agenda. None of those rather would be heard. First one is item number 1, which is special permit new administration building, Choate Rosemary Hall. Again, there's no action requested on that. It's my understanding the wetlands has yet to act on that application. Next one is a special permit excavation and fill for Hutton Street, 21 LLC at 1299 South Broad Street. And again, there's no action requested on that. And the final one is item number 3 on our agenda, special permit change of use, Wallingford Center Street LLC, 204 Center Street. Again, no action on that. Which brings us to our first order of business that will be heard this evening, which is item number 4. It's a site plan inside-outside storage for T. Linden of Ferdy Management, 155 East Street. Again, if the applicant and or its representative please come forward to begin preparing for the presentation. And Mr. Allenson, if you please note all correspondence for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a interdepartmental referral from our senior engineer, dated receipt December 12th, 2022. An interdepartmental referral from our town engineer, dated receipt December 12th, 2022. We have an inspection report from the Wallingford Fire Department, signed on 11/7/2022. And an interdepartmental referral from our environmental planner, received January 5th, 2023, and the site plan application.
Thank you, Mr. Allenson. And we'll just wait a second for this gentleman to get back to his seat. And if you gentlemen would please introduce yourself and begin your presentation.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom Linden, Linden Landscape Architects from Weathersfield, representing the owner, Ferdy Management. With me is Frank DeRosa, the Special Projects Manager for Ferdy. We are here tonight for an application for a permit for indoor and outdoor storage of fertilizer material that they manufacture at their facility on East Street. The outdoor storage is mainly going to be on the adjacent Allegheny Ludlam property. So what I handed out to you is this picture that's not part of the application. It's the aerial photo. It's easier to, I feel, to look at so you can kind of get a better idea of what the place looks like. On top of the plan, that's the formal application plan. So Ferdy is this property here, Quinnipiac River, the Wilbur Cross, and this is the Allegheny Ludlam Steel Building. The intention here is that as Ferdy manufactures fertilizer throughout the entire year, in the wintertime, they have an excess of finished material that doesn't ship until the spring when their customers need the fertilizer. But they need to continue to manufacture. So they run out of space inside their building where they normally store throughout most of the year. So they need another place to store it, and they want to store it outside. So the permit would be for use between December and May would be the season that they would start bringing stuff outside after they fill up their building. They probably wouldn't be out there in December, but it gets close depending on orders. So after they fill up their building, they would begin using storage on the Allegheny site. They have a lease agreement with Allegheny for this current year to use this property. They would store a portion, the two blue pieces, inside the building, and then the red areas are the areas outside the building on existing pavement at the adjacent property. The last area that they would use for storage is their current employee parking lot on the east side of the building. We went to ZBA in November to request the use of less than the required amount of parking spaces based on square footage of the building and the zoning regulations. So that was, they currently have 176, They currently have 76 spaces on the site. By the regulations, they're required to have 147 spaces. So in this area, we're going to use 44 parking spaces to store. The aisle in the middle will still be open. They need it for truck traffic, for operations. They need it for fire access. When we went to ZBA, the fire marshal's comment was, we originally wanted to use the entire parking lot. He noted several spaces that he didn't want parking in there, and we revised that and got approved by ZBA for 132. For 44 spaces, that got us down to 132 below the 148 that's required. Math kills me. So we're 15 spaces less than what's required if they use that parking lot, which they most likely will every single year because they're successful and make that much stuff. One of their questions is Ferdy has 31 employees. So they're going to have 132 spaces for their 31 employees. So they're not going to run out of places to park. The reason why they want to use this property rather than their own is the entire north side of the site and the entire west side facing the river is all FEMA flood zone or regulated by inland wetlands. So that's what this blue line is. That's everything that would be regulated by wetlands. So they can't use this. So the only place that they can use outside of that is their employee parking lot. And then this site, which is, if you know it, is uphill beyond the FEMA zone and wetland zone. So everything's up. Last year, when we were in front of wetlands for a building addition project that's been halted for the time being, we had a DEP inspection. Not sure whether you're aware of that or not, but DEP came to the site and looked at the site and saw the material that they had stored on this side of the building, on the pavement. DEP's report said you can't do outdoor storage without some sort of roof structure over the fertilizer, over anything you're storing outside. After that report, DEP filed their final report, and FERDE talked with them, and they went back and forth on what the regulations were. And DEP, and that email is in your package, DEP said that based on the way they were storing it outside last year on pallets, the bags are sealed plastic, they're wrapped in industrial plastic, that a roof structure was not required. So the way they were doing it is fine with DEP regulations. So basically this is what we're looking for, is these areas, and it's roughly 110,000 square feet of ground space and inside building for outdoor storage and the indoor portion of the building.
That's it as far as your presentation, is that correct? Okay, thank you, sir. Commission, before I go to the commission members, Mr. Pagini, comments on the application, if you have some?
Just a quick background. This is sort of the result of the environmental planner going out, doing a site inspection. She brought it to my attention. There were numerous pallets of fertilizer stored along the banks of the Quinnipiac as well as in the floodplain. So we spoke with Mr. DeRosa, who then obviously wanted to work out how best to approach outside storage. We recommended as far away from the river and floodplain as possible. He then proceeded to get a lease agreement with Allegheny Ludlum, and I guess is presenting what's here before you tonight. And also, just to make note, the original application did not have outside storage allowed.
Thank you. Commission members with questions for the applicant. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick questions, hopefully. The outside storage is only going to be temporarily during the off-season, basically. As you mentioned, do you expect to fill up those red areas, consistently?
The way that our process works is that we are producing now for shipment that usually starts in February and goes in through the spring season. It's that buildup of inventory that requires us to need additional storage. So the outside storage area would be most likely filled up in the area that we've leased at some point here in the next month or two, but then and then we will start to ship off it. Usually, almost at the point that we fill it up, we start to take the inventory down because we get into our spring season. We ship as far south as Virginia, and so that season starts earlier, so that material would start to move usually by mid-February. So we reach a peak and then we start to come down. We don't keep really replenishing that area once we fill it up.
Okay. So basically, you really don't expect to exceed that area?
No.
And then I think my last question is, the pallets themselves, how high are they? Are they stacked, on top of one another, or is it just one pallet, 10 feet high?
So,
Could you describe
so
that?
what we do is we take an empty pallet and we put that on the ground, and then we place the pallets of finished material on that. We do that so that in case there's any runoff or anything, it's just running through an empty pallet, and and essentially there's no environmental impact. And then we will typically stack those pallets 3 high outside. So a pallet could be 36 inches, so it would go up about 9 feet or so on a tip, and typically based on how tight the pallet is, and material is. And then it's covered with a 6mm plastic and secured with rope, and so it's basically concealed. Our pallets, everything we do put out there is in 50-pound bags, so there's 40 bags on a pallet. When that's manufactured, it's in a plastic bag. It is then covered with a pallet cover that covers the pallet, then shrink wrapped. And then once we put it outside, it's covered with the 6 mil poly as well. So it's pretty well protected, and that's why the DEP was very comfortable with what we were doing.
Okay, yeah, just to, so you got 3 pallets.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, and they're wrapped individually,
Yes.
but are they wrapped again as far as one unit? Basically, it doesn't sound like, 9 feet is gonna cause any type of, tipping over problem or.
We go up to 12 feet within our warehouse.
Okay.
But yes, each pallet is self-contained. It's a 40 by 48 inch pallet with 40 bags of fertilizer with the plastic pallet cover and then shrink wrap. And then those are stacked on top of each other. And then the whole an area of those pallets then is covered with a 6 mil UV resistant plastic that allows any light rays to get into that would degrade any of the plastic that's on the bags on those pallets. And then that's literally just secured and so that the plastic is held in place outside. And so it keeps it completely waterproof, essentially, because the pallets are off the ground, so there's nothing that can go. And then on top, there is no way for water to breach into those pallets. And even if it did, there's still 2 layers of plastic it would have to get through on a pallet.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Other commission, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple follow-up questions. Did I understand correctly? I mean, what prompted this application was our zoning, the local zoning regs, and not DEP? Is that true, or?
You say the local zoning regs, perhaps I missed.
Yeah. Well, I thought I heard earlier that DEP does not have a problem with how you are storing the material outside.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so you are back before us on this application to comply with our local zoning regs, not some DEP
Our
regulation.
original
Correct.
permit did not allow, the way I understand it, did not allow for outside storage when we applied back in 2018 with the town. And had we'd known that or understood that at that time, we probably would have included that as part of the process we went through. But yes, it's local ordinance.
Okay, and that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So DEP, I think you said earlier that you were proposing maybe some renovations or additions to your existing building, and DEP had come out to take a look. Is that?
That is correct.
Is that
We were
correct?
going through the wetlands process on a building expansion because what we were trying to accomplish was to put an addition onto our existing building at a production line so we could limit the amount of excess storage that we had so that we would be able to produce material more on a just-in-time basis. And so as we went through the process and the DEP had visited our site, and that's when we realized that where we were storing, at that point, that's when we realized, one, we didn't have a permit to store outside, and two, that where we were storing was in an area that we shouldn't be storing. And so we immediately got out of there, and that's why we're in front of the committee tonight, is to try and establish a more suitable location for everyone and for us to do the outside storage.
Yeah, and really my concern would be not so much the way that things look here, because you're not really in an area where cars are going to be passing all the time, and that sort of thing. But I am just more concerned about the outside storage and the potential environmental impact, and based upon what I'm hearing here tonight, that DEP is actually okay with
Correct.
process.
Correct. And because one, it is out of any environmentally sensitive area. Two, we also offered up to the DEP. We monitor our stormwater, do stormwater testing semi-annually. And we offered up to the DEP as part of the outside storage that we would voluntarily monitor our stormwater every quarterly now and monthly, and we have an outside agency doing it as well for us that we retain as a way to one, ensure that everyone was comfortable with with the process that we had in place.
Thank you. And you may have answered this already, but were you required to go before inland wetlands on this at all? Or no?
For outdoor storage, no.
Okay.
We're not in any of their review area. That's why we wanted to go uphill.
And then my last question is, do you intend on going forward with that building expansion at some point, and if so, when?
We're looking into it. We ran into some issues with the soil in the area. It is a very sandy soil that would require a lot of additional support structures in order to build a building and put a production line. So we're looking into that, and that was what put a stop to it, or halt on it, or paused it, I should say, for lack of a better term, is because of just the sheer cost of what the footings and the structure of that would be. So we're still looking at that and trying to understand if there's other ways that we might be able to accomplish this from an engineering perspective, but we're also looking to see if we can secure another property within the town, and that we would be able to then have inside storage and add another production line as well.
And that leads me to one more question.
Okay.
Which is, if you were able to find a solution to address your production issue, would that then affect the amount of outside storage that you would need?
We believe it would, yes.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hine. Any other commission members? This is not a public hearing, but we do allow members of the public to comment on the application. Any members of the public like to come forward to comment on the application, please come forward and name and address and comments. Seeing none, you gentlemen, I think it's a pretty straightforward application on your folks' part. Would you like to make any final comments before I entertain a motion on your application? All right, at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 201-23, site plan request for Ferdy Management on behalf of Tom Linden for temporary outdoor and indoor storage of material located at 155 East Street in a portion of 80 Valley Street on plans entitled Planning and Zoning Application, temporary outdoor storage dated December 2nd, 2022, subject to 1, comments from the Fire Marshal's Office dated 11/7/2022. 2, comments in interoffice memorandum from Senior Engineer Scott Shipman to the Planning and Zoning Department dated 12/28/2022. Number 3, maintaining full compliance with deep secondary containment requirements at all times. And 4, 6 copies of the approved final plan forward to Planning and Zoning Office.
Thank you, Mr. Benoit. We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application has been approved, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
All right, now we'll go down to the reports of officers and staff. Mr. Pagini, you have the wheel, so drive very carefully.
I will try. So I just wanted to bring up this as discussion to the full commission, potentially putting a possible moratorium on warehouses, potentially in the IX and WI districts and anywhere else you may see fit. I think after our application last month, I think it's important to potentially work on how we want warehousing in the future and how we want to approach it. So that would be my suggestion, is to potentially put another moratorium on it for however the commission sees fit, and I guess just discuss it maybe at a later time, but maybe discuss the potential for a moratorium at this point.
Yeah, thank you. This was an item I asked after our last meeting, I asked Mr. Pagini to consider possibly putting a moratorium on the, on warehousing. Certainly there was some issues that came up that I think were valid issues with respect to the, our existing regulations. Possible consideration, again, I don't think, if we agree that we should have a moratorium, I don't think we want to get into a great deal of discussion now about various issues, but, the one that came up was with warehousing, should or shouldn't that be, a special permit? Or if we should look at perhaps, a different size, different square footage, looking if it's above a certain square feet, if it should be a special permit. Also, something that struck me from the memo that we received from our town engineer, when we look at the trip generation, and again, we're using the trip generation as far as determining peak hour and all of that and the amount of traffic. One of the items that was mentioned, and it was briefly commented by our engineer, and I think some members of the public also brought it up, was vehicle passenger car equivalents. And is that something that we should or shouldn't look at? Quite frankly, I don't know a lot about that. I know our town engineer commented very briefly on it, but is that something that we would want to discuss at a future date if we in fact agree on a moratorium, and we have then a workshop or two discussing the warehouses? There may be some other suggestions from our engineering department with respect to when we're looking at warehousing and trip generation, if we should just simply use the ITE or look at perhaps other measures that might be more applicable in this particular case. So again, I'm not looking for a great deal of discussion on it right now, but just simply to kind of take the temperature of the commission to see, in fact, if that's something that we want to consider. And I think if we do want to consider a moratorium on it, I think we do want to have a very tight timeline where it's not something that we kick out for months and months and months, but we do, set some dates for a workshop. So we can consider it if that's something that we're thinking of. So again, I just open it up to consideration from commission members, and I see Mr. Benoit. I believe I saw you raise your hand first.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would support that, and I'd ask that it be on the first workshop that we have, that we can get it kind of moving forward a little bit, but I would definitely support a moratorium at this time.
Other comments from commission members? I go to Mr. Cohen and then Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I absolutely would support a moratorium. And as you mentioned in your comments, yeah, I think there were a lot of issues that came up with the last application that need to be firmed up. So I absolutely support it. And, I would like to see, us move pretty rapidly on this myself, and not to jump the gun at all. But, did a lot of research on our last application. And one of the best documents that I ran across, and I'll mention it now because, if anybody wants to take a look at it before, we get into a workshop, if everybody else agrees with that, was the New Jersey State Planning Commission put together a warehouse siting guidance PDF, and it was dated September 7th, 2022. And I thought it just covered every aspect of, how to regulate the warehouses. So I kind of for myself, I'd like to use that as a kind of working document. So, but yeah, total agreement.
Okay. Other commission members, Mr. Fitzsimmons, I know you were.
I would agree with both commissioners who spoke previously. I'm in support of a moratorium sooner than later, and then to put it up on the rack and let's look at it and figure out what changes.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Parent, then we'll come back this way.
Yeah, I just second the comments of the fellow commissioners. It's a very complex issue. And I think that we really need to take a look and be careful and make sure we're going in the right direction. So I think the moratorium would be a perfect way to do this.
Mr. Allenson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the moratorium as soon as possible. And getting a workshop in as soon as possible as well. I would like to have an idea how much research our engineering department might need so that we can set appropriate timelines, because I am not an expert on this stuff, and I'd like some guidance from our engineering department. Thank you.
Well, I think they would be an integral part of that. All right, Mr. Pagini, I think the general consensus of the commission is that we would like to consider or have a moratorium. So that would have to be on our agenda for February, is back to consider the moratorium. Obviously, we're interested in that, but that would have to be at our February meeting, correct?
Yes. Any idea of a timeline? 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7?
Six.
I think, to me, I would think 6 months would be the longest that we would want to go in that. And seeing that, at least from general comments of the commission members, interest in having that, I suspect come our February meeting, most likely that would pass. So I would, if you would just relay our comments to our town engineer, and Allenson could perhaps start to gather some information. So again, if it does pass in February, it's not a matter of starting from that particular time gathering information, but we'll already have a jump on it.
We've already started the last month, so we're
okay. All right, good. All right, moving on.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, it's warehousing all zones in town? 'Cause I want to make sure the notice is appropriate.
Correct. I guess it's however you want to approach it. Is it IXWI?
I think it should be, in my mind, it should be warehousing in general.
Yeah.
In general,
Total,
okay.
throughout the town.
I want to make sure the notice doesn't limit us or vice
Right.
versa.
So next item, discussion reduction of minimum parking requirements in the town center zone. There's been numerous interest as of late in our newly passed regulations and some development, and some of the applicants are having a tough time meeting those minimum parking requirements. So I thought maybe we'd have a workshop discussion of some kind in the future. Just get your ideas as to how you want to approach this topic, or if you don't at all. So take it away.
From my standpoint, I think we certainly want to approach it. As far as how we want to go approach it, I guess I would look really from some suggestions from our planning department. Perhaps other commission members have some suggestions, but I'd like some ideas as far as how we can accomplish making some adjustments to our parking. Certainly one of the important things too is to get some input from the public, as well as from developers, certainly to get some ideas as far as what some of the challenges may or may not be, and if they're legitimate challenges, there's validity to them, or if it's just, hey, let's reduce parking to zero so I can build my property, my apartment, or whatever it might be. But as far as what what a regulation should look like, what a number is or that, to be very frank, I have no clue. I'm, really looking for direction from, from you, Mr. Pagini, as well as from, other people in the development community to, have an open, an open discussion on that. Would think other commission members hopefully feel the same.
So what's a good timeline to potentially work on this? Is everybody open for workshops?
Well, I think it's work, I would ask commission members how they feel about it, but, looking at it, if in fact the moratorium passes in February, I would think that we would want to schedule a workshop in March for the warehousing, and to handle, another item that evening. In my mind, I don't think that would be, something that would be too time-consuming. Maybe, maybe not. I certainly don't think that we're going to, again, it's just my opinion, that with parking, that we're going to come to a conclusion in one meeting on that, but we think that would kind of kick it off. So I would feel much more comfortable in having, both of those workshops, begin in March. Other people?
Agree.
I will send out a survey, and once we decide on something, we'll obviously move forward and get the notice out to the public and get this hopefully set by April, hopefully. So.
Well, we want to get it set by March. As far as the workshops by March.
As far as hopefully getting everything almost taken care of by April or May. So. Anything else, or?
I think you're on a roll.
All right. Administrative approvals, any questions on those? ZBA notice, any questions on those?
Anyone, any questions?
So we did, I did include the zoning enforcement quarterly reports. If you want me to briefly go through it, I can do that. Or if you want me to read it verbatim, I can do that as well.
Oh, I don't, unless anyone would like them to read them from verbatim. I think we're set. I guess I have, other commission members may have comments on it, but again, I think, as I mentioned to you, Mr. Pagini, that, to me it would be helpful just to see what all of the violations are. Not, I know we had given the, the list in the past, and then on kind of going over from the left column to the right column, it gave everything that's happening from win to win to win, and I think we've heard that that's maybe helpful, may not be helpful. But I appreciate this report, and I think it's, it gives a good overview of the activity in the fourth quarter. But if I looked at this and I'd say, okay, but where do we stand just on what's the listing of all our violations? That's
right.
I mean, for me, that would be helpful. I suspect other commission members, may have other comments, or maybe looking for other things, other information, with respect to zoning violations. So again, I'd open it up to commission members to see, we have this, what else that they may or may not would like to see on a quarterly basis, with respect to, zoning violations. Anyone?
Amy said she's absolutely happy to speak with commission members one-on-one and go through anything that they would need. Obviously, she could, give a list if necessary. There are a number of legal referrals right now, so there may be some things that maybe not be the best place for a public discussion. But like I said, we can obviously accommodate anything that you may need, and she's more than happy to speak or send anything by email as far as the zoning violations are concerned. She said that the main trend is building things without proper permits through building department and through zoning, so that's the majority of the violations. that are new. There's also a couple of pretty major legal referrals that we're working on right now. So if you need any more information on any of those, please let me know, and I will be happy to guide you through that process.
Okay, thank you. Again, commission members, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a comment. You know, in my professional career, basically, whenever we had a problem, we would, you know, do a root cause analysis and find out, you know, why the problem happened. And based on town planner's comments just now, you know, with the fact he said that a lot of the violations are in folks building without, you know, proper permission. I mean, is there something that, you know, we need to change to get that message out there? You know, is you know, our procedures, you know, inadequate? I mean, what's the root cause? Just
I think it could be a mix of just not caring that they're doing it and just doing it anyway. We've seen a couple where they've lied completely on their building application, building permit. So they'd say they're getting roofing shingles or something, and they build an accessory apartment. So we're running into that where we can't necessarily, you know, keep an eye on everything that happens. I think potentially pursuing accessory apartments, loosening maybe those restrictions in the future may help, because people don't necessarily understand the process. They think, you know, they can just add a kitchen or a bathroom and it won't be an issue. So we have a lot of confusion on that end. So yeah, we try to be proactive in working with people and helping people on that end. So like you said, that may be something that may stop some of these. I don't know if it'll stop all of them. I think just we've really tried hard recently to push the survey requirement, because there's been a lot of people that do things without the survey and then they have a zoning violation on their hands. So we've made substantial progress in pushing that aspect, and we've also made, you know, people aware of survey waivers, and if that's allowed, but that's a very rare circumstance generally.
if I could interrupt you for just a second, you know, are these mainly, you know, experienced builders, people who, you know, try to skirt the regulations, or are they just, you know, new folks who are unfamiliar? I mean, is there a packet that, you know, when you come in and here's what you need to do?
Yes, but it's a mix. It's sort of, some people like to skirt the regulations, some people may not know. So there's sort of some leniency with the people that may not know, but a little bit less leniency with the people that are doing it kind of purposefully, so.
Okay. Kind of a rhetorical question, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Anyone else? Seeing no more comments, Mr. Pagini, no more comments?
Like I said, just let me know if you need anything, any further information. We'll be happy to help.
All right, at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, January 9th, 2023.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? And we're adjourned, just in time for the kickoff.